So this session has been evolving even as I have been sitting here, because I want to build on the conversation we have been having. So let's see how it goes. Really, as Dr. Abbas was saying, this is a moment for co-creation. This is a workshop. So let's see how it goes. Let's put up the slide. Do we have the first slide? Okay. So we've been talking about artificial intelligence already, which is good because artificial intelligence is with us and it will be surrounding us increasingly. And this is one reality that I have personally come to understand in a different way in the past year. So the machine is not going on. That's okay. It's okay. So what I want to do, the topic that I have is ethical considerations for teaching, which is what we do, however we define it, in a world of AI. And in thinking about the topic a little bit, I have focused it even a bit more as a topic to the question concerning artificial intelligence, education, ethics. Have you heard of that phrase? I hadn't before I started looking into this particular talk. Artificial intelligence, education, ethics. And there's a shortened version which is AIED. Have you seen it? You've seen it? Just heard it. I hadn't even heard it. You know, I've been working in the area of ethics all my life, but especially in the past 4 years. And in the past year, very much in AI ethics, and I hadn't heard the term. This isn't a good sign, really. And so actually, in looking into and researching this topic of ethical considerations for teaching in a world of AI, I learned about this, and I wanted to share some of those learnings with you because it relates directly to us. And, great. And I want to have a dynamic session of engagement together. So it's kind of a lot. So let's see how we do. I think I will contextualize myself for you just a little bit to share my background and my story. And what I am realizing is that maybe not only is it kind of nice to be personal, but maybe now, in the face of this question about artificial intelligence, which raises the question of our humanity, you know, and who are we as humans? What is spirit? What is soul? You know, what is unique about humans? What is something unique about tech? What do we want to do? That somehow the story might be more than just nice. It might be essential somehow. So let me just tell you a couple of things about myself, how I got here. I'm from the United States. I've been living in Switzerland for more than 20 years in Geneva. And you know it's an international crossroads. And it sounds like a big international city, but really it's a small international village. It's a very strange place. But it's a place where people from all over the world can meet. But they have trouble meeting. You know, it's small, but they have trouble meeting and connecting profoundly. So this kind of interests me. So I've stayed there. I studied philosophy as an undergraduate, And I intentionally went to a small liberal arts college. And it is exactly the school that was described to us earlier. It was a school with this vision. Not all schools in the United States back then. I graduated in 1991. I'm 54 years old. And I tell you this just to contextualize myself and my story, right? Not that I tell everyone all the time. So, you know, at that time even, liberal arts was a choice, right? And my mother and my father funded my undergraduate education, not my graduate, but my undergraduate. It's expensive in the United States. And they agreed. You know, they didn't exactly understand, but they trusted me and God and the process. But my father said, okay, but please take one accounting class. And so I did. But, you know, in reality, that's part of the liberal arts, right? It's going to fields that are a little bit uncomfortable for you and that don't seem immediately connected to your topic necessarily, but to see that actually they are. And I was the general secretary of an organization. I didn't have to do the accounting, but I had to understand the accounting. And so it was good I took that course, even though also I understood that wasn't my discipline, you know, that's not my gift. So later I went to China and I taught English as a second language in a university. And so that's the biggest teaching experience I have in the higher education. I then came back to the US because I wanted to study more, and I studied theology at Yale Divinity School. So I came very soon after that to Geneva and have worked in church, educational institution, and nonprofit organization, and mostly nonprofit organizations who have been trying to take action for justice and human rights, to create and build bridges, as we have been hearing, to work for unity of people, unity between religions in the sense of coexistence and maybe even more, maybe even kindness, I think maybe even love, you know, between us, even when we have some difficulties. And also within my religion, there's a lot of division within Christianity, which is my religion, and I've worked for that too. I've worked in the student movement. I was the general secretary of the oldest university student movement in the world. And interestingly, India was part of that movement for 110 years. And I came as the general secretary in 2012, I believe, to Bangalore, which is where their center is, to give the centenary address, you know, and it was my first time in India. And the best way to come to see students from all over India. And this is a student movement that also tries to create affirmation and connection and appreciation of all the diversity within India. And that's what our movement tried to do and tries to do also. Recently, I've been working for an NGO that works with universities around the world, and it's called Globe Ethics, and it is concerned with the fact of what we've been discussing today, which is that somehow you are not alone in your systems here. Many of our educational systems, also in the United States, are kind of losing, or maybe never had, or maybe had and are losing, or have lost this understanding of what education is all about, we think, which is the formation of our critical thinking skills, our character, you know, our mind, our intention to provide leadership in our discipline and in our country and in our world. And so this NGO was set up to try and contribute to that. And also, it was set up 20 years ago when we saw the web, the internet, starting to change things a lot. And they said, this is going fast already 20 years ago, and we're not really talking about it ethically. And we're also not necessarily building technology in a way that involves all the knowledge in the world and gives access to everyone to participate. So that's one ethical issue, but there are many other ethical issues. So this was the motivation for this NGO, and it was very interesting and a very big privilege to meet. I was the partnership person, and so I had the privilege of working with my colleagues in different regions of the world to show partners, like potentially yourself, that in fact they're part of a network working for this and trying to figure it out in your country or your region, but also you're connected to a global group which is trying to do this. Well, in last year, the ethics, a new strategy was developed and a new executive director came on board, and the ethics of digital and emerging technologies was articulated as one strategic goal. And it happened to be the one that I got to work on. And for me, it was interesting, but a little bit of a challenge, because even though I've been thinking about these issues to some degree, as a kind of from a philosophical and theological perspective, I'm also, and thinking about, I could see the worries. I could see that part really clearly. But I also, of course, experienced the benefits. And I got onto social media, but I was reluctant. But I got on because I wanted to be closer to the students I was with around the world, But I understood how it would change me a little bit and how it was changing everyone. But I knew I needed to get into it in order to think about it better and participate in whatever it is we're going to do. Well, and I have gotten addicted to the phone, very seriously, we are addicted now. This is a problem. This is only one of many problems. So, the question is, I'm not the most addicted one that exists. I can put it away and it's fine for me. But I'm a little bit too addicted, I need to regulate myself, and I see it. So it's just one example, but even though, yes, I was engaged a little bit, having some conversations with students, I was a bit of a technophobe and a little bit scared of this subject, and also not attracted to it. Some people are attracted to the innovation, and I appreciate them, but I'm not. I'm really not. And in this year, I was able to go into the places where leading technologists are present, where leading regulators are trying to respond hastily because they weren't prepared, even though we knew, where leading educators are starting to wrestle with the questions we're wrestling with today. And I faced myself. I faced my resistance. And I also started to learn from very experienced people and ethical people. And so a long story short is that I have realized that on the one hand, not everything is inevitable, and we need to participate to help shape the course of these things in our lives. On the other hand, and I didn't want to admit it to myself, but some things are inevitable. Some things are just happening. They've already happened and are happening. And so then the question is, how do we respond and what do we do? So I have launched full-time into this new vocation, perhaps, and I am launching a new project, and I've recognized, similar to the idea of entering into social media to learn about it, I'm actually, that unless you're engaged in the tech, you can't really participate in its regulation and its shaping in your even good dialogue with your children or your students. And so somehow I think we, as people older than the younger ones, the ones that are younger than us, as our students and our children, that I propose that we have a role in actually helping other adults kind of join in an intergenerational response to this. And it's a challenge. And my project is to actually launch a metaverse. And I will tell you more about it over time when we're ready to launch. But to actually, not for money, it might make a little money, but not for money like many of the games are doing, but kind of in service, so that we can explore the technology and how we can humanize it. And also part of the agenda will be to send people back out to real life situations, but to recognize they're going in. And through this project and this learning experience, I want to then, I want to be a part of conversations, regulation, education along the way. So that's an introduction. Now, if we could go to the next, go to the next slide. No, you can go back. All right. I'm going to give you, okay, I and a colleague of mine, who's a philosopher and a coder himself, created this image for a different talk that I gave in Dubai. And I'm going to give it to you, and I just want you to talk at your table and discuss what it says to you. So could you pass these around? Maybe get someone else to help you. Maybe you could help pass one per table. And if you could just spend a moment, and answer the question of what this image says to you, and then just a little feedback. We won't spend too long, just your impressions. Let's have the mic over here. This was a good comment. I just asked, what's your impression?
The AI educator without any borders.
Okay, thank you.
Because there is no limit as far as AI is concerned.
Okay.
And it has almost taken over. But I still very strongly believe that it is the machine. It is not the machine, but the man behind the machine that matters. Finally.
Okay, thank you. Let's try to let's try to stick to the question of the impression of the image. Okay, and kind of quick. Let's hear a few. Anything at this table? Impression? Do you like it? Is it weird? What does it say to you? Anything? I don't know.
I feel the AI will dominate the world.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that face is kind of creepy, right? Okay. This table. Anybody? An impression? Just an impression. It doesn't have to be profound, Even an emotion. How do you feel looking at it? Do you like it? Is it or not like it? Somebody. An impression? She's saying something. No? Okay. This table. An impression, simply. A short impression. Not an...
AI dominates while ethics falls.
Okay. AI dominates while ethics falls. Impression?
AI is conquering the world.
AI is conquering the world, okay? And the image, arguably makes a kind of suggestion that's a little scary.
AI is controlling the world.
AI is controlling the world, okay. This table, any impression? It's not analysis, really, just impression.
while looking at this picture, I feel it's, according to me, it looks like a human being having a head, body and all, but totally it is machinery. Nothing productive is coming from this picture.
Okay, nothing productive is coming from it. That's interesting because it's a robot, right? We think productivity. Okay?
Actually, in this picture, the picture of the earth, the facial expression, it looks like gloomy, so it's confused about what is going to happen with all these technologies to the coming generations.
Okay. So you see more confusion than kind of malevolence, okay?
I believe that it's a kind of cognitive revolution. It is a journey from unknown to known. So that's I would like.
Okay. Yeah, you see some familiar pieces in here and some unfamiliar pieces, and they're brought together in a different way. Are there any other comments that you want to make about impression? Okay, impression.
I think it is looks like the AI transformed the world to a student, or looks like a student who is sucking all the information and transforming into dead things. It looks like life. Here is the sucking machine. Goes to the mind of the AI, which is control the whole world and make the whole world as a student, just the passive way. And this student is transforming all the information to something looks life, but is in fact is a dead skulls here. But it is skulls within a tree, and then it is moving in a very rapid way. The back wheel are strong, the front wheel are weak. So that means moving very rapidly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Negative momentum.
So you know, it's not meant to be definitive, it's meant to be provocative and to get us thinking. You can see that there's a bias, right? You know, I and my colleague James Coder are coming with a bias. We did some of this research together, but we're willing to discuss it, you know. I mean, and this is what we heard is the purpose of liberal arts education. And we're not here to win, you know, we're here to win for humanity and to struggle together, you know, about the best way to engage or not engage or whatever. So our bias at this point is my bias. My understanding is that this is coming, it's going to come sooner. You know, I'm listening to the ones who are creating it, and we're talking about not only AI, but AGI, artificial general intelligence, or artificial superintelligence, which means that, you know, the information that is in these complex and fast-moving machines is going to kind of make connections and generate new things, you know, at a rate that we're not expecting, and with content we're not expecting, and they don't even know what to expect. And there are people who are saying, this is not good, you know, like how did we get here? We didn't guard the process at all. We didn't limit the ones in the innovation. And this is a big debate. But right now, it's happening. So people are actually trying to grapple with it. And I can tell you more about the international processes at the UN, if you want to know. I have a sheet with that, and we could even do a webinar or something if you want to know about that. Because you can participate. You can participate online. And it's happening right now. You know, and you can still weigh in even until the end of May. You can send opinions, actually. So I just note that. All right. So we've heard that, you know, we heard the U.S. as a nice model of liberal arts, but in 2011, according to a publication called Academically Adrift, only 55% of students in American universities learn anything measurable in the first 2 years of university. And I can just, and there are other studies, and I can attest to the fact that there's a decline, in the quality of education in the U.S. And it's in part, due to this the changing goal of education, and the methods follow. So you can go to the next. Stay here. So just to look for a minute into this topic of not only AI ethics but AI education ethics. I want to just give you a couple points, and then we can all learn more. And then I want to interact again. So more than 20 years ago, so it's about 20 years that AI has really been kind of generating. We haven't been paying attention. First, me. Have you heard of Ray Kurzweil, who writes science fiction and has these futuristic ideas? You should know of him. He speaks there at these UN meetings. He's around. But 20 years ago, he wrote a book called The Age of Spiritual Machines. Well, just 1 year after that, Aiken and Epstein wrote a foundational paper, which we should all read. I've only read a summary of. Ethical Guidelines for AI in Education, Starting a Conversation. They advised 20 years ago that we start a conversation. We did not, so this is a loss. And we have some responsibility as educators. Notice the words starting and conversation. And as far as James and I can find, this is probably the most important AI education ethics piece to date. The title goes off of a book by philosopher Heidegger, who wrote The Question Concerning Technology. And this is a kind of foundational philosophical piece that perhaps should be a grounding for thinking of technology and AI, and especially AI in consciousness, experience, and education. So you see, it's this liberal arts principle in action. We might think, I study finance, or I study tourism, or I study English. I can't handle Heidegger. I was a philosophy major, and I know what you mean. I have trouble handling Heidegger too. But actually, it becomes more relevant than we think pretty quickly. And so maybe going into some of those texts with a goal, to kind of look at these questions could be helpful. So you could go to the next slide. We are at a critical juncture, because a lot of people are actually affirming AI ethics as an important thing now, and so we have an opening, to do more serious work about it. Maybe there's more funding, maybe there's more resources, maybe there's more interest in our resources for publication, or for events or whatever. I've noticed that, just like many things, some people just set up an AI ethics department and then check the box, and aren't really doing the deep work. So we have a role to challenge that, and to say, no, that's not what ethics means, not just having a little policy on the shelf over there. And this was the whole learning for me in the past 4 years, is that in much of our education, the idea of ethics as looking at, maybe it's a way of saying what Professor said, going into those kind of core values that we want to base ourselves on. We have a higher vision. We have a moral compass and some principles guiding us. And we want to develop the facility or the skill of looking at our discipline with an ethical lens. It doesn't end, it keeps going, because new topics always arise. It's weighing the ethical dilemmas. And and then, at some points we make a regulation because we see it's needed, but that's not the only point. So, AI ethics is here artificial general intelligence is coming. These regulation discussions are happening, in England, in the US, in the EU, at the UN, in some institutions, in some companies. We need to formulate for ourselves goals and principles, as somebody said earlier. What values, in general and regarding this? We need, I would propose, to articulate humane, compassionate, and wise principles for the use of artificial intelligence in education. And the potential for harm is too great for us to ignore. We've already discussed, if we had more time, we would spend more time fleshing out, all of the potentials for good. But I think we kind of have a sense of that. We've talked about it a bit, and it will be valuable to do it more with your students. Flesh it out. What we know it's there for good, It can help us solve medical problems. It can make some things more efficient. It can give access to people for education that they wouldn't have had otherwise, etc. But I also think that people tend to either prioritize the good or prioritize the bad. And in reality, I don't think it's a good or bad kind of situation. It's a reality that we need to see how we're going to handle, and then how we're going to shape it and make decisions about how we're going to use it. So what's our time? What time is it? What time? I have an hour and a half.
It's more. It's 2:33.
It's 2:33. We started 2:43. We started at 2. So I have 45 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe let's just throw out in the room, not at the tables, but just throw out anyone who wants to say something kind of, again, kind of brief. Potential harm of AI. It could be for education or in general. Just throw out a few things. We've said a few, but anyone? Potential harm.
Maybe for the next generation, it will restrict the thinking, when we are using the language model of artificial intelligence. Now children are thinking that no need to think about it. We can just find it out from the we can use ChatGPT or Google or any of that kind, and we can find the answers. Then why should we spend time on thinking? So that may restrict their thinking capacities. This is one of the potential harms.
Thank you so much. And I love that you started there. This is the best conversation because you're right there. And in fact, to me, it's like what nobody talks about, really. Even when we talk about ethics. Honestly, nobody's talking like this. But to me, it's the most central point. How are we being formed? How are our minds being formed? The agony of writing, the agony of researching. It changes you. That's part of the whole, the pain and of it all. It's like that, then we grow, and maybe some of that could be reduced, but maybe not all of it. Thank you. But what else? Harm. Anything. Big or small. Potential harm. Or harm that you're seeing.
I think there is some reports coming from the United States that the children, their intelligence is reducing in a very dangerous way because they start using their hands and writing. They cannot do any handwriting. Their fingers are completely paralyzed from using pens. And they are relying more on the computer, so they are relying on the machines to think for them. So it is losing the skills and reducing human intelligence. Of course, there will be some people there to invent machine, but the majority will be dependent.
Yeah, and then could we be more controlled?
Yes.
There are studies that say, that when you put the pen to the paper physically, it does something different in our brain. Yeah. Okay, what else? Potential harm.
Yeah.
Last week, my grandchildren, they were in my home because this is holiday for them. And I asked them to make 10 short stories, 10, from ChatGPT. So their sisters, 1 year difference only them. They made 10 short stories out of that, and interesting stories only. And after that, I told them to write separately by their own. Both of them wrote, and I found that the impact of using ChatGPT made their creativity, I think, better.
Okay.
So I think we have a role to play in this age of technology.
Okay, so this is going back to potential, like some of the potential, creative potential, because without a doubt, it's not only like just technical innovation, it's actually offering potential for other aspects of human creativity, arguably. Yep, thank you.
When we talk about AI, in terms of language, right, in terms of when we delve into the field of translation, it's a threat. It's also a threat there because it can't like visualize, or it can't translate, or it can't transform the emotions. When it comes to the translation, like any text is in any language, and we want to transform it in other language, and the text is in the form of poem, in the form of like poetry. When we transform it through the help of AI, we can't transform the same emotions, the same sentiments. So there we are losing. So in terms of translation, in terms of literary text, literary emotions, we are losing there. I think that is also the biggest thing, because when teacher or when a human translates or transforms, he puts the idea, he puts the emotions into that. But when a machine translates, there's no emotion, and machine can't get the emotion. So there we are losing that.
Thank you. I mean, it's just the big question about what is man, what are humans, and what is machine? And there are different theories at work about it. And this gets into transhumanism and singularity and all kinds of things. And, I would agree with you. There are others who wouldn't. And even if we agree, the technology is going to get better so that we feel like it has emotion. You know what I mean? Like there are already companions for children. And I think we're all going to have personal AI assistants who know our whole story, and etc. And there are already people going to AI for religious concerns, and people are promoting this kind of thing. There are already virtual, especially boyfriends for young girls, who are responding to them on, like, quote unquote, on that emotional level that lots of young girls are looking for. And we're getting, apart from AI, we're having a lot of problems, between, in our relationships, right? We're having a lot of trouble understanding each other, and this is a big issue. It's one of my interests as well. So, So again, I really don't think, I agree with you, we shouldn't be all doom and gloom, and I am not proposing that we do not integrate some technologies. We are integrating technologies. The question is, how, and which ones, and in what proportion, to other things, and how. Some of these things are not really questions, they're happening. And so how are we, maybe I can prevent that with my daughter out because of the particularly good relationship we have and good formation and so on, but maybe not, because she gets, even though we have that, she just gets attracted away with her friends, but even if that's true, many other youth are going in these directions. So what do we do? What can we construct along with the construction of these technologies? And where do we step in and regulate? Where do we step in and say no? Okay, I think, is there any other burning? Okay.
I think our own profession is in danger, because maybe in future these teachers will be replaced by some machines or something like that, and that the relationship between the teacher student, that can be replaced as a machine student relationship. So that kind of a harmony can be, harmed. That's what.
Thank you so much. I mean, I'm going kicking and screaming. Do you know that phrase? I don't want to acknowledge or admit that this is happening, because I value that so much. That relationship. But in fact, that's true. It's going to happen. So what are we going to do about it? So on the one hand, how can we create good teaching AIs, right? Ethical ones. That's a big question. How can we use it to reach people that wouldn't have had education? It's also an opportunity, but there's a loss. Also, how do we preserve some important in-person aspects? Thank you. Okay, just a couple more. I think you all know about plagiarism, right? Yeah. Okay, so this is a issue, and I think there's a lot written on this, and I can give you some references too. But people are working on that, because maybe it's a problem, because we all, insofar as we're looking at the ethics, most of us are not. But if we try, it's normal. We go to the issue that directly affects us, right? And so for us, it's maybe plagiarism. But then my invitation, my exhortation is to say, yes, let's try to solve that problem, But then let's look at it in light of the whole scenario, especially as academics. Yeah.
The issue here is not whether to use AI or not to use it. The issue is how to be used, to which limits. I'll give you one example. In one of the important offices in the Middle East, they hired 4 consultants from abroad. They were giving them for almost more than a year, like $1 million a year. No, more. No, like $8 million a year. And after 2 years, they discovered that they did nothing. They used the ChatGPT to develop reports. So it is amazing. So it is amazing. So the point here is we should discuss not whether we are using. I use a ChatGPT myself. My English is not that level I dream of or expecting. So I use ChatGPT to edit my work. I use it. But the point here is how to be used, which limits, and to which areas. Now it is controlled and run by very aggressive capitalist mentality. We are living here in a socialist or communist state. So that means a huge number of employees will be removed from the market, will be unemployed. This is very dangerous for poor and underdeveloped societies. If you get rid of all the secretary, all the administrative assistant, all the translators, all the editors, look how many people will lose their jobs just because you're doing something very fast, very fancy. That's all. So the problem is the ethical. I agree with you. We have to emphasize more the ethical aspect of utilizing AI in different areas or even in inventions.
Yes, and gain a certain realism about it. And again, I'm speaking first to myself, and I'm the one who has protested in a sense. No, but I'm being forced to admit that in fact it's going to happen. It's going to replace jobs. So we need to, your school, I hear, has been really working on that kind of level to try and say, okay, what's happening and how can we equip our students, for the reality that we have in the job market and so on. So we need to keep thinking about that. But then along with it, not reduce our thoughts to that pragmatic question. We shouldn't avoid it. We should be strategic about it. But then at the same time, I propose we lift up that higher vision of higher education. And even if your system, kind of makes it a challenge, it's still it's a challenge you can do something with. Yes, maybe the system can change gradually, but you know very well that you can, in the way you interact with your students, make a big difference with them. So just a couple more things. I mean, I think we're already talking about the changing role of teachers. This is before AI. So this is kind of in the same track, and this just speeds it up. I think we know about predatory behavior and a lack of safety for our children, and even for ourselves. I think we know about deep fakes, and I think we know about propaganda. We've heard this already, and to try and manipulate our political choices or just our consumer choices. We're fighting those things anyway, and AI is just enhancing it, right? So, but I would go back to this issue that we started with. All of these are very serious and require a lot of work. And I would go back to this point as somehow central about our thinking, our formation as people. Okay, the next slide. The last slide. No, the next slide. Next slide. No, back. Sorry. Let me just make a couple points and then action. So this icon, if you could go back, that would be great. So since this article was published that I referred to, what's the acronym again? Do you remember? AIED, Artificial Intelligence and around ethics education. 2 decades ago, they published. There's been very little that has been published since then. And most of it does not really propose much around designs and methods of deployment on students, teachers, and wider society. It tends to be reduced to questions about data and computational approaches. And there's little crossover, there's a gulf, there's a gap between AI ethics, which is what I started by working on, and AI education or AI education ethics. And so it's very strange, right? And so we need sort of to look at some of the fundamental stuff around technology in general, then look at AI, and then look at specifically education in relation to all of that. Well, I would say every single level is very poor, and those bridges are not being made. So, and I can tell you more about the poverty of the discussions at the global level. There are some good people though, but the discussions in general are not robust. But I think this also relates to most of the discussions we're having. They're not very, because we're losing our educational style and purpose, we don't have this space for robust conversation to progress, right? So, perhaps, yeah, we can go to the next, we can just stop there. With AI taking over not only efficiency but imagination, and not helping us process the shifts in meaning, that happens in education and in society. We're in a different and strange kind of situation in human development. So, what can we do? I am planning to upskill, like I'm terrible. My friend James, put this together. Though it's simple, I'm not good at doing it. It's not actually simple because he designed this thing. And he didn't do it on PowerPoint because he wanted to be artistic, because he values aesthetics. And he thinks that, and I think, that if we are thoughtful about our aesthetics, it can help us internalize the points, that we're talking about. And then he put it onto a PowerPoint. I'm not good at that. And I want to learn how to use ChatGPT to do PowerPoints and pretty ones, Like I need to upskill, and I am upskilling. We need to upskill. And I encourage us at the same time to give pause for these questions, the ethical questions, and then to begin to act. And so I felt surprised when I entered some of these rooms as a relatively young, person in technology, that I was making a contribution in each and every space I went into, because they didn't have philosophers and theologians and ethicists, and they need them, And I would propose that talking to your grandchildren, just talking to our students, laying open these questions. And actually, I think that engaging the imagination of the next generation to enter into the questions is probably our best strategy, that we stay with them, that we have a better intergenerational collaboration to where we're learning together, and that we have that sort of humility to say, I have to learn, we have to learn together, and but yes, there is still something to experience that the youngers need, but there's some exposure that they have that we need, so we need each other more. I'd like to, I was going to have us do another table discussion and think about kind of actions we could take, or follow-up we might like to make. But instead of that, I guess the core proposal is that, among other things, we need to celebrate and explore and prioritize our human connection, our human uniqueness, and we know we need to do it anyway, but maybe it's that much more urgent. And maybe one of the gifts of this kind of fast-paced thing is that it can bring us into these things with more urgency and actually help us go deeper into our humanity, our community. So in that vein, I learned there was a singer among us, and I was just talking to her, she was, and I said, I would love to hear you sing. And then I just thought, why don't we hear her sing? I asked, and then I'd like to sing all together. I'd like to teach you a song after that, which is like it's an experience of community. So, and we have time, right? We have time.
Yes.
Yeah, we have half an hour. So, in fact, this song, it's Lete Kamenon, and I asked her if she has a song that is somehow related to what we're talking about, community relationships, and she said, oh, many. And she said, I have one that's about basically kind of missing someone when they die, but kind of reflecting on, I wish I had made more of that relationship. And so it's a way of saying, let's treasure and let's cultivate, human exchange. And so I'd like to invite Lete Kamenon to come sing this song for us, if she will. Are you willing to come and sing?
എൻ്റെ അടുത്ത് ഒരു പാട്ട് പാടാൻ ഇപ്പോൾ പറഞ്ഞു. ഞാൻ എഴുതിയൊരു പാട്ടാണ് എൻ്റെ കയ്യിലുള്ളത്. ജസ്റ്റ് ട്യൂണിട്ട് വെച്ചിട്ടേ ഉള്ളൂ. ആ ട്യൂണിൽ ഞാനല്ല ട്യൂൺ ചെയ്ത് ചേർത്താൽ ശശിധരൻ സാറാണ്. ഞാൻ ജസ്റ്റ് എൻ്റെ ട്യൂണിൽ ഞാൻ പാടിത്തരാം. അത് വലിയ എന്താ പറയുക, വലിയ പാട്ടുകാരിയൊന്നുമല്ല, വലിയ എഴുത്തുകാരിയൊന്നുമല്ല, മലയാളമാണ് കേട്ടോ. അപ്പം അതിന് ഞാൻ പറയുന്ന ബന്ധങ്ങൾക്ക് നമ്മുടെ റിലേഷനുള്ള നമ്മുടെ വാല്യൂ എത്ര കൊടുക്കുന്നുണ്ടെന്നുള്ളതിൻ്റെ തീമാണ് ഞാൻ ഉദ്ദേശിച്ചിട്ടുള്ളത്. അത് നമ്മൾ ജീവിച്ചിരിക്കുമ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ഒരുപാട് കാര്യങ്ങൾ നമുക്ക് പലരോടും പറയാനും ചെയ്യാനും ഉണ്ടാവും. പക്ഷേ പലർക്കും ബിസി ആയിരിക്കും. ടൈം മെയിൻ അതാണ്, നമ്മുടെ ലൈഫ് ടൈം കുറച്ച് ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടാണ്. നമ്മുടെ എന്തെങ്കിലും കേൾക്കാനോ കാണാനോ പറയാനോ പ്രതികരിക്കാനോ ടൈമില്ല നമുക്ക്. അപ്പം അതിൻ്റെ ഒരു മിസ്സിങ് നമ്മൾക്ക് ഭാവി ലൈഫിൽ നമ്മൾ ഫീൽ ചെയ്യുന്ന എനിക്ക് അനുഭവം ഉണ്ടായിട്ടില്ല, പക്ഷെ നമ്മൾ അങ്ങനെയുള്ള അനുഭവങ്ങൾ നാം മുൻകൂട്ടി കണ്ടിട്ട് നമ്മൾ ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരു വരി കുറച്ചേ ഉള്ളൂ. അത് ഒരു ധൈര്യം പോരാ. ഇനി ഞാൻ ഉറങ്ങട്ടെ ഈ ഭൂമിയിൽ, എന്റെ 6 അടി മണ്ണിന്റെ ശയ്യയിൽ, ഉണരാതുറക്കത്തിനാഴങ്ങളിൽ പോയി നിലകൊള്ളും സത്യവിശ്വാസങ്ങളിൽ ജന്മബന്ധങ്ങളെ മറയാക്കി മാറ്റിയ സ്വപ്നങ്ങളിൽ സ്വപ്ന സൗധങ്ങളിൽ ഇനി ഞാൻ ഉറങ്ങട്ടെ ഈ ഭൂമിയിൽ എൻ്റെ 6 അടി മണ്ണിൻ്റെ ശയ്യയിൽ. പരിഭവമില്ല പരാതിയില്ല എൻ വിതുമ്പുന്ന ചുണ്ടിൽ നിന്നിടറി വീഴാൻ. കണ്ണിൽ നിന്നടരുന്ന നീർമണിക്കാനില്ല ഓർമ്മയിൽ തങ്ങിയ കഥയോതുവാൻ. ജലരേഖയാക്കിയ സ്വപ്നങ്ങളെ പിന്നെ ബന്ധങ്ങളറിയാത്ത മോഹങ്ങളെ മറവിതൻ മറവിലായി സൂക്ഷിക്കുവാനായി ഇനി ഞാൻ ഉറങ്ങട്ടെ ഈ ഭൂമിയിൽ. ഇനി ഞാൻ ഉറങ്ങട്ടെ ഈ ഭൂമിയിൽ എൻ്റെ 6 അടി മണ്ണിൻ്റെ ശയ്യയിൽ. ഉണരാതുറക്കത്തിനാഴങ്ങളിൽ പോയി നിലകൊള്ളും സത്യ വിശ്വാസങ്ങളിൽ ജന്മബന്ധങ്ങളെ മറവി മറയാക്കി മാറ്റിയ സ്വപ്നങ്ങളിൽ സ്വപ്ന സൗധങ്ങളിൽ ഇനി ഞാൻ ഉറങ്ങട്ടെ. ഇനി ഞാൻ ഉറങ്ങട്ടെ. ഇനി ഞാൻ ഉറങ്ങട്ടെ.
So now I would like us to form one circle and just somehow around the tables. Can we just make one circle? This is a technical exercise. Can we do it? Quickly. Just one big circle, like just around the tables. You know, we don't have to move the table, just somehow around. Okay. I'm just going to give us a little experience of something from my culture, from the U.S. And you know, it's a big story actually. Have you heard about gospel music, African American gospel music? Like, oh happy day, oh happy day. Have you heard that kind of thing? Well, if you haven't heard about it, it's a very special kind of music that has its history in something very terrible, which is the enslavement of people, right? The African American people came over as Africans who were enslaved. And some of them found faith, actually the faith of their masters, which was Christianity for the most part, but they took it for their own. And they saw in the Bible like protest about injustice, and they developed a kind of language through music that actually was a form of resistance. And you know, the music had codes, some of it, you know, they were work songs to help them work, you know, and keep energy. Or they were songs to help them know the route to escape, you know, because some of them would escape to the north. And it was also saying God does not want this condition for people, you know, and it was also worshiping God, and it was also building community, because they are at the root of a lot of music, you know, from the spirituals of African American to gospel, to jazz, to blues, to rock, to funk, you know, to techno, you know, it has roots in this call and response in the African American spiritual and gospel. And there's a principle that you're a community, and by being together, something between you is created, and you belong. You know, everybody belongs, like in the circle, figuratively. And then somebody comes forward as the leader, you know, and is supported, like they find their voice, you know, with the community to go in between and express something from their heart, but their heart is shaped by the community. And then maybe they go back and somebody else comes forward, to call. And there's one simple song, just with the word amen. And I propose that we try it. Are you open to try it? Yeah, so amen, or amin, means so be it. It's like an affirmation. And many people use it to end a prayer. But it doesn't have to be only used that way. And so there's a simple song, I'll just sing it. Amen, 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 amen. So sing with me. Amen, 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 amen. Now sing it by yourselves. Yes, but I need more energy. Amen. 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 Sing it out now. Amen. 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 A little louder. Amen. 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 Wanna try it? Amen. 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 Just we're gonna stop in just a minute, but do you see the idea? So it's call and response. So I come in between with the call, and then you respond, right? And then if it, you can do this exercise with a whole group of students and pass the mic and let everybody try to come in. And then in the beginning you don't know how to do it, and you don't know the rhythm. It's something different, right? But then you support the community, you support the person, it doesn't matter. Just shout, just say, I don't know, and that's it. That's the call. It doesn't have to be anything, it's who you are, where you are right now. So you heard I was saying, sing it louder, because it's a communication between us. So just before we close, does anyone want to try it? Amen. 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 Amen.